going on?
The Senate will please come to order. In lieu of a devotion this morning, this sunny morning, we will begin with a moment of silence. Thank you. Are there any announcements this morning? We have a number of appointments from the governor. We have 21 appointments, which we've received from the governor, which are now being referred to the committees having jurisdiction. These appointments will appear in today's calendar. Tomorrow. We have 3 House bills for reference. 740 relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the town of Milton. Pursuant to Rule 44A, H 742 is now referred to the Committee on Government Operations.
I'm so sorry about that. This one actually have to read the first time. It's a 44 because they gave them a preview.
Okay. Please listen to the first reading of H 742.
H 742, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the town of Milton.
Now you've heard the first reading. Pursuant to temporary Rule 44A, H 742 is now referred to the Committee on Operations. To confirm, that is the only first reading today.
All 3 of them.
All 3, thank you. We have on the calendar for reference H 745, an act relating to the approval and the adoption of the charter of the town of Montgomery. Please listen to the first reading of H 745.
H 745, an act relating to the approval of the adoption of the charter of the town of Montgomery.
Pursuant to temporary Rule 44A, H 745 is now referred to the Committee on Government Operations. And finally, H 746, act relating to an amendment to the charter of the city of Burlington. Please listen to the first reading of H 746.
H 746, an act relating to an amendment to the charter of the city of Burlington.
You've heard the first reading, and pursuant to temporary Rule 44A, the bill is referred to the Committee on Government Operations. This does bring us to the orders of the day. We have on the calendar for third reading, H 606, an act relating to community resilience and biodiversity protection. Third reading was ordered on April 29th. Are there any amendments before third reading? Please listen to the third reading of H 606.
H 606, an act relating to community resiliency and biodiversity protection.
You've heard the third reading. The question now is, shall the bill pass in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've passed H 606. concurrence. We have on the calendar today S 100, an act relating to universal school. The senator from Bennington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I request that we pass over S100, and by way of explanation, the committee is still working on an amendment and will likely be on the floor tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President.
Now pass over S100 and move along to S287 unless there is a request to pass over.
Thank you.
The senator from Addison is recognized.
We are ready to pick this up today. Thank you.
Wonderful. We have on the calendar today S287, an act relating to improving student equity by adjusting the school funding formula and providing education quality and funding oversight. The House has proposed to the Senate to amend the bill as set forth, pages 4733 to 4750 of today's calendar. The underlying question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment on S 287? The senator from Addison is now recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. We received the bill back from the House. This is the pupil waiting bill, better known as the pupil waiting bill. The House made several changes to the bill, so I'm going to just go over what they changed and what they kept the same. And the most important thing and the primary thing that is the same is the House did concur with our use of the weights. So they implement the same pupil weights that the Senate recommended in our bill, which were the weights that were recalculated by the authors of the study last fall. So that is the major thing that is the same. And they also kept with our structure for English language learners. One thing they did was they, instead of saying EL, they call them ELL, they call them EL. So it's now English learners instead of English language learners. And apparently they were doing that for federal law conformity, I'm not sure, but that's what I was told. But they keep the weight for all school districts with English language learners, and then the mini categorical aid grant that we implement or that we recommended for the districts with 25 or fewer. So it's the same structure for English language learners, the same kind of reporting, and made some minor changes in that. They also continue with the additive weights, like we changed the math, and also using the Universal Income Declaration form as a measurement of poverty. So the structure of the actual implementation of the new funding mechanisms are fundamentally the same. They did make some changes, and so I will attempt to explain them to you because one of them is largely math. And you remember when I stood up on the floor and talked about math for a really long time and everybody's eyes glazed over? This is kind of the same thing too. What they did in the structure of calculating the number of pupils in a school district, you recall you apply the weights to the students in the school district, so students in poverty or ELL or high school students get a different weight, and then that creates something called equalized pupils. The number of pupils that are equalized or weighted pupils, and then we apply what's called the equalization ratio to that numbers of pupils to bring it back down to the actual number of kids in the state. They get rid of the equalization ratio and they get rid of the whole concept of equalized pupils and just have weighted membership. It's just math. It actually gets us to the same point. And I could go into more detail, but I know you don't want me to. I'm happy to talk to anybody about the math and show you the little chart that Brad James gave me with the equations on it. But I can assure you it is just math. But it does make the formula simpler, which was one of the goals of the task force. So that is one of the major changes, it's a math change. They also implemented this a year later. So we had it structured that it would start in FY24. They have it structured to start in FY25. We had a 5-year roll-in, you might recall, using the average number of equalized pupils over a 5-year period and sort of rolling them in slowly over 5 years so school districts can plan and prepare for the weights to roll in. They implement the weights all at one time. So in 1 year, FY25, they all go into effect without rolling them in. But then for the next 5 years, they have a mechanism that prevents a school district's tax rate from going up more than 5%. So 5% is the threshold that was used in Act 46 when we merged a lot of school districts. It was also a threshold that was used in Act 60 when we changed the formula in the late 1990s to create the basic structure that we have right now. So it is a commonly used structure, and school districts would not be they would not get into trouble for having more than, I couldn't think of the word, for having more than 5%. This will cost a little bit of money to the education fund. The estimate in the first year is 17 million, then 6 million, then 2 million, then it goes down each year. So that is another major change that they made. Then the other changes they made are mostly around reports. Our friends in the other body love reports. So there are, I think, 5 reports that they asked for in their version of the bill. One of them is related to English language learners, or a report on whether or not we should have differential weights for different types of English language learners. And one is if we should look at changing the amount of the mini categorical aid grant. So that's one report they asked for. They asked for a report on the other option, the cost equity option, which they didn't go to, but they want to report back on, looking at that a little bit further. There's a report on career and technical education. There is a report on the income-based education funding formula, whether we use an income tax instead of a property tax to fund our schools. These are all reports that they're asking for. So they're not making changes to those right now, but they're asking for more information. The other major change they did is that we had a really robust evaluation audit in our bill. My colleague from Franklin was really the architect of this. They unfortunately removed the audit and just have a minor evaluation in their version of the bill. They also removed the Education Fund Advisory Committee that we had implemented as a sort of oversight body of the education fund itself. And then there are some other minor changes, but they're fairly so those are the changes, and I'm happy to answer questions about any of the changes. Your Finance Committee has discussed this, and we are recommending at this time, given the date and the amount of time we have left in the session, that we concur with the House proposal amendment. However, we do know that there are issues that need to be addressed, and the pro tem and the minority leader and I have committed to coming back to addressing some of the technical changes in other areas that might need to be addressed in the future. And we're working out a plan for that. So I just want to assure anybody who has concerns, please come and talk to me, and we will get back to those issues. But at this point, we are recommending concurrence. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal amendment on S 287? The senator from Windsor is recognized, and I'll recognize the senator from Essex Orleans.
Thank you. We're in the middle of a conference. Thank you, Madam President. We're in the middle of a conference committee with a key piece of this that I know it's not math, I know it's career and technical education, but it's a key piece of workforce that the Senate Economic Development Committee put into play 4 years ago, and we very much would like not to be concurring on this, and because this is in another bill that we're negotiating now. I'm happy to discuss it, but we want action on this now, not next year. So when you say in the future, Madam President, I want to know what in the future means, because we're negotiating this now.
Senator, are you asking to inquire of the reporter?
Yes, thank you.
Madam President, short recess.
The senator from Wyndham has requested a short recess. The Senate will stand in recess to follow the gavel. The Senate will please come to order. We are returning from a brief recess, and the senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe I was answering a question from the senator from Windsor related to a section of the bill that she had concerns about. And I just want to repeat that we know that there are several sections of this bill that need a little bit more attention, and we will be taking them up in other means as soon as we can. I also want to add one other thing that I forgot in the differences, just to make sure that it's a record so that everybody understands. There is another mechanism that the House put in related to districts whose education spending increases more than 10% during the 5-year roll-in. And this is sort of a cost containment type thing, so that districts don't feel like, oh, my tax rate can't go up more than 5%, so that means we can spend a lot more, gaming the system, so to speak. I don't think districts, I don't think that's how they put their budgets together, but just to prevent that, there is a education spending rate review committee that is put into the House version of the bill. If a district's education spending increases more than 10%, they have to go before this little rate review committee that's made up of the Secretary of Education, 2 superintendents, and 2 business managers that are chosen by the Secretary, and they have to basically make their case. There are exceptions to that, such as declining enrollment and increases in tuition costs. And this is one of the areas that we want to make some changes in, to include facility costs and costs for state and federal requirements. So that's just another provision in the bill that is different from ours, and I wanted to make sure I didn't leave it out because it's rather important. So thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment on S 287? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've concurred with the House proposal of amendment on S 287. There has been a request to pass over H 736. We'll move on to H 465, an act relating to board incidents, as we have on the calendar for third reading. Third reading was ordered on May 4th. Amendments before third reading. Please listen to the third reading of H 465.
Page 465, an act relating to boards and commissions.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Passed. H 465 in concurrence. We now have on the calendar for third reading 489, an act relating to miscellaneous provisions affecting health insurance regulation. The reading was also ordered on May 4th. Are there any amendments before third reading? Please listen to the third reading of H 489.
H 489, an act relating to miscellaneous provisions affecting health insurance regulation.
You've heard the third reading. The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and you've passed H 489 in concurrence. We now have on the calendar for H 727, an act relating to the exploration, formation, and organization of union school districts and unified union school districts. Third reading was ordered on May 4th. Are there any amendments before third reading? I believe there's amendment A offered by the senator from Washington, Senator Perchlik, that can be found on the calendar on page 4765. The senator from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. So you'll see here, this amendment is brought to you by all the members of your Committee on Education, plus the junior senator from Addison. who is the person that brought this issue to us. I'm presenting this amendment because this deals with the sections of the bill that I presented yesterday. And it's just a way of explanation. It was pointed out that I talked about these sections of being all towns from Addison County. But one of the sections was Stowe. I want the senators to be aware that I'm aware that Stowe is not in Addison County, which is important for me to say because as a member of the reapportionment committee, I was blamed for moving Stowe to Washington County. So I wanted to let the people of Stowe and Lamoille County know that I'm not trying to move the town neither to Washington County or to Addison County. This section, this amendment deals just with the towns in Addison County because Stowe does not need the treatment that we're giving these 3 Addison County towns in this amendment. And further explanation, I think one of the reasons I made that mistake yesterday is because given the time that we spent on these towns in Addison County, you kind of get the feeling that all Vermont towns were in Addison County. So there's 3 instances of amendment dealing with the 3 towns. And basically what each of these instances of amendment does is gives the town the opportunity to give 1 more year of preparation to go in front of the Board of Education to finalize their withdrawal. We had this all happening this summer and fall where they have to issue the report. I talked about the State Board of Education would review that and then make a decision. This gives the town, like in Ripton, it gives the board that's been created, the town school board. And then for Lincoln and Starksboro, it's self-appointed withdrawal committee. Gives them the opportunity to say, you know what, we need another year because there's some work happening amongst these 3 towns of creating their own supervisory union together, because that's one of the difficulties when you withdraw from a supervisory union. Where are you going to get those services? They're all in different stages of the withdrawal process. This would allow them all to extend a year and then see if they can go to the State Board of Education next summer and say, okay, here's our proposal to move forward. So each town and each instance of amendment has a section, like you'll notice for the first instance of amendment on page 4766 in subsection B, there's language whether to extend the operational date by 1 year. That same language is in each instance of amendment for the 3 towns. The committee, testimony from the junior senator that been heard also from the Agency of Education and supported this move to just give these towns, because it was a big issue for the towns and a big issue for the superintendent, the supervisory unions, and having a year if they need it, we thought was appropriate in circumstance. So we supported the idea, added this amendment, and we asked senators to agree to this amendment. Thank you.
The question is, shall the Senate proposal of amendment be further amended as moved by the senator from Washington and others? The senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. And I am the senator from Addison. The junior senator from Washington just called me the junior senator Chittenden. So you're getting your counties a little, sorry. Anyway, I wanted to thank the members of the Education Committee, all of them, for all the time that they spent trying to come up with some proposals and language that was feasible for my constituents in these 3 towns. I know that they spent way more time talking about Addison County than any other county in our state, and I really, really appreciate their efforts and their time. This issue has been a little bit difficult for me because some of you know that prior to being a senator, I was a school board member, and I actually chaired the committee that merged some of these districts that are now trying to unmerge. So it is a little sad for me, frankly. That being said, I'm in a different role now, and I'm trying to help them find an acceptable solution, and giving these 3 towns a little bit more time to come to an agreement with each other, because I think the understanding is that they would like to create their own new little supervisory unions. So they need to get on the same timeline, and right now they're a little off schedule. So this amendment would allow them to get on the same timeline and see if they can work out a new supervisory union with these 2 towns. So again, I just really appreciate the efforts of the Education Committee this confusing and time-consuming and challenging. So thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the Senate proposal of amendment be further amended as moved by the senator from Washington and others? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And you've proposed, the proposal of amendment is further amended as moved by the senator Washington and others. Are there any other amendments before third reading? Please listen to the third reading of the bill, H 727.
H 727, an act relating to the exploration, formation, and organization of union school districts and unified union school districts.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as amended? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And you've passed H 727 in concurrence with the proposal of amendment as amended. We will now move on to H 265, an act relating to the office of the Child, Youth, and Family Advocate. It was read for the first time on April 8th. It was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which amended as set forth on pages 4778, 4787 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. The bill was then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that when so amended as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare, the bill ought to pass. 265.
H 265, an act relating to the office of the Child, Youth, and Family Advocate.
A senator from Addison, Senator Hardy, is recognized for the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Madam President. Shifting gears. As legislators, we are elected to advocate for the needs of our constituents, which often means helping them navigate what can sometimes feel like confusing, impersonal, and intimidating systems and programs. Relative to average Vermonters, we are in positions of power and are at the center of creating government systems and programs, so we generally know how they work and who runs them. But our ability to advocate for all Vermonters in every situation, particularly involving the most confusing and intimidating systems and programs, only goes so far. So we create offices and people to act as advocates of the people, to help them if they've been harmed or left out, or simply need help navigating the complexities of state government and the programs we fund. In the Health and Welfare Committee, we're very familiar with the healthcare advocate and also the long-term care ombudsman. In finance, there's a taxpayer advocate. And I'm sure there are specific state advocates familiar to other committees. There are also places like the Office of Racial Equity, the Human Rights Commission, and the Commission on Women that advocate for specific segments of our population or for the rights of people more generally. But, Madam President, unlike more than half of the states and all of our New England neighbors, Vermont doesn't have a position or an office that has been specifically set up to advocate for children and families. The bill before us, H 265, seeks to remedy this omission by creating an Office of the Child, Youth, and Family Advocate. Children and youth and their families, particularly those involved with state programs, are often some of the most vulnerable Vermonters. And the systems we create to serve them can be some of the most intimidating and confusing. And I want to be clear, Madam President, the state staff members that serve children and their families are dedicated, skilled, compassionate people. This office is not being proposed to police them. Rather, it's being proposed to advocate for children and their families who are often at their most vulnerable moments and may be faced with a daunting system that is meant to protect them, but may not always feel like it does so. The advocate would also seek to improve that system, monitor and analyze relevant policies, programs, and data, and respond to questions and complaints from Vermonters. So we'll take a look at the sections of the bill, which can be found on page 4778 of today's calendar. Because it's a new office, it creates a new chapter, chapter 32 of the Office of the Child, Youth, and Family Advocate. First section, it creates some definitions, and I will note that there is an amendment that will be offered later that will make a few changes that we discussed with the Appropriations Committee. So I will not speak to that right now, but there will be some changes to this language. And the next section, the office is established the Office of the Child, Youth, and Family Advocate for the purpose of advancing the interests and welfare of Vermont's children and youths. The office shall advocate for the welfare of children and youths receiving services from the department and those involved in the child protection and juvenile justice system. The office shall promote reforms necessary to better serve Vermont's children, youths, and families in a manner that addresses racial and social equity. The office shall act independently of any state agency in the performance of its duties. And in this case, the department that is referred to is the Department of Children and Families. So the next section creates the duties of this new office. And we in the Senate Health and Welfare, one of the changes that we made was to create two types of duties that they must do, so shall duties, and duties that they may do. So they're optional if they have time. It's sort of a big job for a new office. So they shall work in collaboration with other parties to strengthen services for children, youth, and families, monitor and analyze the development and implementation of laws and regulations and policies, review complaints from Vermonters, as I mentioned in the beginning, support children, youth, and their families by providing information, and also look at the system concerning children, youth, and families and make recommendations provide information to the governor, to us, to state agencies and others. They also will do an annual report on the conditions of children and youth in placements in Vermont, findings related to services, recommendations, and data related to children, youth, and families. They may review current systems, so have a systematic review related to children, youth, and families. They may address any challenges related to accessing information, and they may include extra information in their annual reports. The next section of the bill creates the advocate position, the advocate is appointed by the governor after he receives some recommendations of individuals who are qualified. The person must have a professional degree in a relevant field and will work on a full-time basis. There are provisions about removing the advocate for cause, provisions about a deputy advocate, so the advocate can have a deputy position, and provisions about how to replace the advocate if the advocate is removed or retires or gets a new job, and about the deputy serving in their stead during that transition period. There's created in the next section, 3205, the advisory council. There's a temporary advisory council that's created for the first 5 years to advise the advocate during the initial years of the office startup. The next section, starting on 3206, is about notifications the department will do related to injuries, restraints, and fatalities of children involved in the system. There's information, and the next section, 3207, is about access to information and facilities. The advocate would have access to information and records necessary to carry out the provisions of this chapter, and would be able to communicate with a child privately who is in the custody of the department, or with the consent of a child or youth's parents, to privately communicate with a child who's not in the custody, but it would have to be at the parent's consent. They also may enter facilities if there's a reason that for providers delivering to services to children and youth who are funded by the state. And this is to get at issues in particular, like Kern-Hatton, the school that had some issues related to child abuse, so that they can go into facilities and talk to children who are in the custody of the state or with permission from parents. State agencies have to cooperate with them. There are provisions about confidentiality of information, and that are fairly standard provisions about confidentiality. They may not disclose publicly information about individual children or their families or their kins or their foster parents. And they may not disclose any information about pending law enforcement investigations. There are provisions about conflict of interest, which are standard provisions about conflict of interest. A lot of this was modeled after the healthcare advocate language, the standard language for that office. There's also created an Oversight Commission, and that the commission is actually created first because the commission makes recommendations to the governor about the appointment of this, the advocate. And the commission has members from the legislature and then members with professional expertise that are appointed through the legislative process. And so there's a lot of language about the commission, but it's fairly standard commission language. In section 2 of the bill, it creates this office as a mandated reporter for child abuse and neglect. It adds the office to the list. And it talks about the records of that the advocate has access to, including records of abuse and neglect and records of juvenile judicial proceedings. The advocate position would be created as of January 1st, 2023. The commission would be created beforehand, as I said, to help appoint the advocate. There is a small appropriations that there'll be appropriation report about. And then the advisory council would be created next spring and exist for the first 5 years to advise the child, youth, and advocate. One thing is that this office would be independent, similar to the director of racial equity. So it would likely be in the agency of administration, not embedded in the department or the agency of human services. So your Committee on Health and Welfare heard from a number of witnesses related to this bill, including the healthcare advocate, the director of racial equity, the number of advocates in advocacy organizations, of course, our Joint Fiscal Office and Legislative Council, the Department of Children and Families, the Defender General, and the Commissioner of Department of Children and Families, the sponsors in the House, and yes, a lot of people from Department of Children and Families. So the vote in committee was 5-0-0, Madam President, and we ask for your support.
The senator from Bennington, Senator Sears, is recognized for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam President. When I first heard about this bill, I was prepared to vote no. And I think other members of your Senate Appropriations Committee were as well. 3 of the members of the Senate Appropriations Committee have long histories in the child welfare system. I won't mention the number of years, but it could total in 100 years between the 3 of us. And we all were concerned about this particular bill. And I will say, working with a senator from Madison, we were able to come to an agreement on the amendment that you see on page 4788 of today's calendar. I want to thank her for working with the Appropriations Committee. And the final result was a 6-0-1 vote from Appropriations. And so we urge the body to adopt this bill.
The senator from Addison, Senator Hardy, is now recognized for the amendment, which I believe begins on page 4788 of today's calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, as the senior senator from Bennington mentioned, this amendment does address a number of the concerns that were brought up by individual members of the Appropriations Committee. And just taking the amendment just overall, The first instance of amendment provides more clarity on what department and what would be the oversight of this, the sort of scope of the oversight of this office. The office shall advocate for the welfare of children and youths receiving services from the department, which I mentioned, Children's and Family, DCF, or through funds provided by the department, so the sub-grantees of the department, and those involved in the child protection and juvenile justice systems. It would not have oversight of schools and educational agencies or, at this point, mental health agencies or anything. So starting with this much more focused scope of just looking at children who are involved in DCF or juvenile justice or child protection services. The other instances of amendment, most of them, except for one, deal with removing the word investigate. There was a concern that this office would have investigatory duties, and that was not the intention. There are other mechanisms for investigating child abuse or child neglect. There are court systems, there are systems within DCF itself. And we didn't want to have this office have investigatory duties that would get in the way of those investigatory duties. It also is a very small office, and investigations take a lot of people power. So this would remove the word investigate and replace it with respond to, or just get rid of the carry out individual complaint system reviews, but remove that word. And then the final one was a concern about the time frame for notifying the department, the office, about instances of restraint and seclusion. The original bill had a 48-hour notification. This changes to just a notification. There was a concern that 48 hours is a really tight time frame for that type of notification. The 48-hour notification time frame remains for fatalities. We felt that was something that was more urgent, and thankfully there are not many of them, so it's more feasible. So that is the amendment, Madam President, and I just ask everyone to support it and thank the Appropriations Committee for their time on this one.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare be amended as moved by the Senator from Addison and others? Are you ready for the question? The Senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. This is on the amendment. It's not on the, okay, thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Again, the question is, shall the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare be amended as moved by the Senator from Addison and others? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the proposal amendment as proposed by the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question now is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended? The Senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I intend to support this bill. I'm not questioning it at all. But earlier we had a report from Senator from Rutland about boards and committees and commissions and councils. And we have been trying really hard in that to try to get people to get proper terms. And commissions are generally seen as outside of state government, like the Ethics Commission, the Human Rights Commission. Those are commissions. And so I'm just curious if I may ask the reporter of the bill.
Okay.
I'm just curious, thank you, if you had any conversation about whether this really is a commission, or if it's a panel, or if it's an oversight committee, or if it's an advisory council. And I know that's a tiny matter, but we really are in that sunset advisory committee trying to establish some consistency.
Thank you for the question, Madam President. I will say that there were a lot of issues that we attempted to address with this bill, and a lot of concerns that we attempted to address. And that was not something that came up in the committee, the use of commission or council. And I completely understand the desire to be consistent about it, and would be happy to have a conversation before third reading about the appropriate term for each of them in this bill.
Thank you, and I can understand that this didn't take a lot of your attention given all the issues in this bill. but just to make us aware that we do need to establish some kind of consistency. Thank you.
Question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended? The senator from Chittenden is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to just support the bill as it has been amended and to share with folks that the Joint Legislative Committee on Child and Family Protection Oversight met during the summer and the fall and took testimony this past year and years previous on the need for a child advocate position. And it was the decision of that committee that included 3 senators and 3 members of the House to recommend that the child advocate bill be put forward. We heard during testimony in our committee from DCF about a need for collaboration, and that the word investigate, as has been removed through the through the amendment, was concerning. And so based on that, our committee concurs with the work that's been done in the Appropriations Committee and has been voted on. And we also, as a committee, supported that language. It made it a lot easier to have it all happen in one place, and we're pleased that it did. But I am particularly pleased that this is going forward, and I think it will offer great protection and oversight and support for children, for families, and also for those who work with children and families in our Agency of Human Services. So thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended?
Roll call.
The senator from Bennington has requested a roll call vote. Are you ready for the question? Again, the question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended? Secretary, when ready, is kindly asked to call the roll.
Senator Ballin.
Yes.
Senator Baruch.
Yes.
Senator Benning.
Yes.
Senator Bray.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
Yes.
Senator Campion.
Yes.
Senator Chittenden.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Senator Collimore.
Yes.
Senator Cummings.
Yes.
Senator Hardy.
Yes.
Senator Hooker.
Yes.
Senator Ingalls.
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Senator Lyons.
Yes.
Senator McDonald.
Yes.
Senator Mazza.
Yes.
Senator McCormack.
Yes.
Senator Nitzka.
Yes.
Senator Parent.
Yes.
Senator Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Perschlick.
Yes.
Senator Polina.
Yes.
Senator Ram Hinsdale.
Yes.
Senator Sears.
Yes.
Senator Sirotkin.
Yes.
Senator Starr.
Yes.
Senator Terenzini.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator White.
Yes.
Please listen to the results of your vote. The yeas 30, the nays 0, and you propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read for the 3rd time? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 265. We have on the calendar now for action, H 466, an act relating to surface water withdrawals and inter-basin transfers. It was read for the first time on February 2nd. It was referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends the bill be amended as set forth on page 4789 of today's calendar, and that so amended the bill ought to pass. The bill was then referred to the Committee on Agriculture, which reports the recommendation of the amendment of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy be amended as set forth on pages 47-4801 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. The bill was then further referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports the bill without. Please listen to the second reading of H 466.
H 466, an act relating to surface water withdrawals and inter-basin transfers.
The senator from Windsor, Senator McCormick, is recognized for the report of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Madam President. H 466 deals with surface water withdrawal, inter-basin transfers. It intends to create a data collection and reporting program of surface water withdrawals and to authorize the Agency of Natural Resources to assert authority over inter-basin transfers. We'll go into greater detail as we go along. The intention is to use the data gathered by the data collection system, to use that information to develop an equitable, resilient system to protect existing users' water quality and habitat. Why do we need to do? Oh, and this is in response to the report of the Act 173 study group. Like most of the eastern United States, Vermont is a riparian state. We, the people, own the water collectively, and the state is the trustee of our water and is responsible for its proper maintenance. We do not have information about how much water is withdrawn, who's withdrawing it, where it's withdrawn from, how it's used, what is done to it, where it ends up. There are some exceptions. We do keep an eye, for example, on water withdrawals by ski areas for snowmaking. But for the most part, this is sort of a part of life that goes on without people's trustee, the responsible, or actually knowing what's going on. It becomes, in particular, a problem because of climate change. Vermont is generally thought of as a wet state, and it, as we all know, often is, except on occasion when it's not. And we've always had droughts. I remember as about a 4-year-old going with my grandfather with buckets to get water out of the brook because both of the wells had dried up. It happens, it has always happened occasionally, but in fact, we are having more dry spells and longer dry spells. And it's interesting, and this is something to do with global warming in general, which is that the effects are very specific to particular areas. Windsor County, where I live, had a fairly wet summer. And we're finding that just a few miles north of us in the kingdom, that there were drought conditions. So we need the information so we know how to respond. And things aren't going to get better by themselves. The bill provides 3 measures for the Agency of Natural Resources. I'm coming down from 30,000 feet now to about 20,000. And then we'll get into a section by section. The bill has three measures for the Agency of Natural Resources. One is a system to evaluate. Secondly, a permitting program. Thirdly, authority to deal with inter-basin transfers. System to evaluate, permitting program, inter-basin transfers. Going back to the system to evaluate, that will involve registration and reporting starting on January 1st of next year. So that one comes on fairly quickly. Other provisions there's quite a delay so as to give people time. This is to get a baseline. The triggers as to who gets required to participate will be changing in the next couple of minutes, in that the original bill as introduced, as came from the House, has one set of triggers. Your Natural Resources and Energy Committee has proposed a different set of triggers, and then when I am done, the Agriculture Committee will offer their amendments, which will basically making fewer people have to participate, but making life easier for people who are concerned. The permitting program, ANR has to develop a permitting program by the 1st of July 2026. So there's a good lead period. Presently, most withdrawals don't need permits. As I mentioned, snowmaking is an exception. The intention is to reduce conflicts, create predictability, reliability, certainty, environmental protection, and this is in everyone's interest. And then there is Inter-Basin Authority to deal with inter-basin transfers. Vermont is interesting. This little state actually is in 4 watersheds, 4 basins. The southwestern corner of Vermont drains into the Hudson River. The rest of the west of the state drains into Lake Champlain. Parts of the Northeast Kingdom drain into Lake Memphremagog, and the state east of the Height of Land in the Green Mountains, except for the Northeast Kingdom, drains into the Connecticut River. It all goes into the Atlantic, but it goes into the Atlantic via the Hudson or via the Connecticut River or via the St. Lawrence. It is possible to take water from one watershed and put it into another. This became an issue regarding water snowmaking, taking water from the Ottauquechee River, which goes through Woodstock and Quechee into the Connecticut River, and transferring that water so it ended up in the Otter Creek and into Lake Champlain. So it's the Connecticut River as opposed to the St. Lawrence. And that has potential, in particular when we think about invasive species. But also that each system really is a system. It has its own system and can be disrupted. Now we'll do a section by section. Now we're down to, we'll probably get a microscope when the questions come. And now we'll just go through the section by section. And pretty much section 1 is most of the bill. And it does completely different things. It starts with a definitions section. And it's technical definitions, and most of them are obvious. We will have an amendment to drop the word spring from the examples of surface waters. The original bill, as it came from the other body, referred to spring as surface water. Springs are generally regulated as groundwater, and there was some alarm for having it treated as a surface water. It seems to me that a spring is exactly the moment and the place where groundwater becomes surface water, but that is not what we're proposing the law say. And our definition sections, as colleagues know, we always say for purposes of this section, such and such, fill in the blank. So for purposes of this section, if it's amended, we will not include a spring as an example of surface water. Section 1 also includes a policy statement. It's customary to ask permission of the chair to read. I actually have to read. Do I need permission to read from the bill?
You may, just read from the bill. That's fine. When it's an outside document.
And outside, okay.
It's generally requested.
And I assure my colleagues, I am not going to have reading from the bill be my report. But in this case, I find it's just rather than my characterizing it. The policy statement, the policy on surface water withdrawal for off-stream uses other than snowmaking. This subchapter is intended to assure the protection, maintenance, and restoration of our surface waters, help to provide for and enhance the viability of industries that rely on surface water extraction, permit surface water withdrawals based on scientific analysis, and develop a program that recognizes that people who must change their behaviors in response to the needs of our surface waters have adequate time and opportunity to improve water quality. Section 1 then goes into the details on registration, reporting, risks, exceptions, and requires that the agency do rulemaking. Originally, it was to be just develop policy, but we want rulemaking rather than by orders so that this would come before LCAR, that we're not letting go of our authority as the legislature. Section 2 authorizes and directs the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources to do the various things I've just been describing. Sections 3 and 4 are the usual renumbering and renaming necessary when bills change. And I'll be offering, on behalf of the Committee on Natural Resources, at third reading, an amendment that requires more public input. There were complaints that we didn't hear enough from the public. I'll turn now to the Natural Resources Committee's proposed amendments. They appear on, I think the president already announced this, but page 4789.
That's correct.
Of today's calendar. Our first instance of amendment, and I've already made reference to it, has to do with the definition of surface water, and it deletes springs. The second instance of amendment increases the thresholds for when a surface water withdrawal must register withdrawal. Withdrawer, it says withdrawal on my notes, I apologize. When a person or entity withdrawing water must register and report to ANR. The original trigger was 5,000 gallons a day, between 5,000 and 10,000. And farmers thought that was burdensome. So our amendment proposes that we move that to 10,000 gallons per day or 150,000 gallons over 30-day period. The second instance of amendment also changes how a person withdrawing water for livestock watering reports ANR. The bill has come from the other body for metering. And we determined that that would be expensive and burdensome to farmers and that they could simply make a good faith estimate, make a report rather than metering. The third instance of amendment has to do with the general permit for state or municipal infrastructure projects. The Natural Resources Committee proposes an amendment requires ANR's permitting rules to include a general permit for withdrawals for state or municipal infrastructure projects. The general permit will establish a rate and withdrawal volume that only requires notification of ANR and would not require pre-approval. Madam President, the list of witnesses we heard from, I apologize, it's a long list, but I'd like to read the entire list, in part because there were emails and phone calls implying that we had not heard from enough involved people. We heard from Brian Carpenter, owner of the Champlain Valley Equipment, Chair, Middlebury Select Board, Brian Carpenter, owner of the Champlain Valley Equipment and Chair of the Middlebury Select Board. Jared Carpenter, Water Protection Advocate, Lake. Jeff Crocker, Soil Protection Coordinator, Department of Environmental Conservation. David Dean, President of Trout Unlimited, Connecticut River Valley Chapter. Representative Karen Dolan, co-sponsor and reporter of the bill for the House Committee on Natural Resources and Fish and Wildlife. Joseph Dutton, owner of Dutton Berry Farm. Jackie Folsom, lobbyist for the Vermont Farm Bureau. Joshua Gonda, Associate General Counsel, Department of Environmental Conservation. Charles Gray, owner, Four Corners Farm. Matt Musgrave, Government Affairs Director, Associated General Contractors of Vermont. Jeff Nelson, Strategic Advisor, Vaness, Hengen, and Burstein. Michael O'Grady, Works Counsel. Mason Overstreet, Staff Attorney, Conservation Law Foundation. Ryan Patch, Agriculture, Climate, and Land Use Policy Manager for the Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets. Justin Rich, Vice President, Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association. Jason Shetty, General Manager, Burlington Country Club. Graham, and I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty pronouncing the name, Ruthenach, Policy Director, Rural Vermont. Kathy Erfer, Stewart, Connecticut River Conservancy. Thomas Weiss, resident, Montpelier. We heard from people involved in the issue. The vote in committee was 5-0-0. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator from Chittenden, Senator Pearson is recognized for the report of the
Thank you, Madam President. To me, this represents the path this bill is taken, and the outcome represents some of the best of our process. As the bill came over from the other body, there were members of the other body expressing surprise at what they'd advanced. There were constituencies that are implicated expressing frustration with their lack of access. There was a swirl, I think it's fair to say. And between the two committees talking to you now, Madam President, I think we've been able to stay focused on the goals and get to a place where all of the various actors agree to the compromise. So I'm proud to have played a little role and tell you our story and the changes that the Committee on Agriculture is offering today. Just, I won't go to 40,000 feet and I won't spend long, Madam President, but it is important to take this issue seriously. Our surface waters are treasures. They belong to the people of our state collectively. And we're seeing, not in Vermont, but across the world, out west in this country, radical changes around surface waters. We are likely to see wars, Madam President, I think it's fair to say, in the near distant future around water. So this is a very, very serious topic. On the other hand, when it comes to farmers, more of their energy is trying to deal with too much water. And the impact of climate, which is bringing more intense rain events. But as the senator from Windsor mentioned, we also have great regional variety in Vermont, where you have, as we saw last summer, southern Vermont getting hammered, flash floods, and droughts in the northern part of the state. This is our new reality. We got to deal with this. And one of the questions I kept asking people who were concerned about this language was, do you agree that the state should be blind to what we're doing with surface water? We literally have no idea today who is using surface water, extracting surface water. And even the hardened opponents had to agree that that was ridiculous. So we were able to hear from many different actors and I believe reach a compromise that I hope the Senate will support. If senators would turn to page 4795, the Agricultural Committee offered a strike all, but that's mostly to make it a little less confusing. We have, I would say on a whole, we have adopted natural resources language and then made a few amendments to it, which I will describe. But because of the structure of the bill, our amendments are sort of appear throughout the language, and so a strike all made it easier. On 4795, you'll see a third of the way down is a list of exceptions to who must register, report withdrawal of surface water. And we added number 4, surface water withdrawals for irrigation, for farming, livestock watering, and other uses for farming as we define farming. So right away, remove farmers from the construct that natural created. But, and that removes them from the eventuality permit. And let me just say that as the bill arrived from the other body, there was not only a looping of farmers under the potential permit, but also a requirement that they meter their water. So that is an expensive piece of equipment that has to be added to the pump and was causing some financial frustrations in addition to the prospect of being permitted. And after all, some of these farms have been extracting water from rivers for 40 years. And here comes the state to say, no, we're going to change that scheme. So there was frustration, but again, a goal of wanting to understand the lay of the universe made a lot of sense. And I think it's important, before I describe the rest, to just say, we don't have data, good data, but there has been data from the EPA and others that have looked at this historically. And the estimate is that agriculture accounts for 6% of water that's extracted from surface water. Not a big player, but not insignificant, and possibly, dotting several rivers. So we pushed and said, no, we've got to really understand the lay of the universe. If there's 40 farmers along one stretch of the river, we need to know that. That would be very different than if there were only 2 on one particular point. So back to the language, page 4800. What we do here is create the report requirements for farmers, for people that are using surface water for irrigation, livestock, and elsewhere. And we mirror exactly the setup that natural resources created, where anyone using more than 10,000 gallons in a 24-hour period or 150,000 gallons over any 30-day period is forced to report once a year. They are, we do take where the other body had a meter, we allow estimates. And that was practical for farmers, still meaningful data, but felt frankly less harassing for the farmers. Now, keep in mind, farmers don't just hit the pump, start irrigating their field and walk away and come back when they remember a little later. They're pretty particular about how much water they're putting on their field because you got to get it just right. And so basically we heard that people are already documenting, keeping track of the hours. And I want to say, for perspective, 1 hour of a drip line on an acre of land is about 4,000 gallons. So it doesn't take much of our veggie growers or fruit growers to trigger this reporting requirement. So here on 4800, we're laying out that as soon as you take these triggers, just as we have in the natural resource construct, we require a report. We once a year, that report goes to the Agency of Ag. We wanted to, let's say, not discourage farmers from reporting. And as we know, there's an old sort of back and forth between A&R and Ag. But we believe that farmers will be more comfortable reporting this data to the Agency of Agriculture. However, on the top of 4801, we require that Ag share the data with A&R. We want the data in one place. A&R already has jurisdiction over our waters. It's totally appropriate for them to keep an eye on this. And that's essentially what our committee did, Madam President. We heard from a host of witnesses, probably half a dozen individual farmers, and then organizations like the Farm Bureau, NOFA, Rural Vermont, that represent hundreds of farmers. We heard from the Department of Environmental Conservation, from the Agency of Ag, from Ledge Council, from, in particular, the Vermont Farm Bureau, and from Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association. And I would just say, since I've been on the Committee on Agriculture, there's been, and predating that, there's been a real push for us to diversify Vermont's ag economy. It is not healthy for all sorts of reasons to be so hinged to dairy, frankly, Madam President. And this impacts our diversified ag. And there's thousands of those farmers. We are losing dairy farmers, but we can be frankly proud that we are swelling in diversified ag producers, such like the people that would be impacted here. And so I think this is a decent compromise. Your committee vote was 5-0 in support, and it is a compromise supported by the Agency of Ag, by the Department of Environmental Conservation, by farmers, and by water quality advocates. And I hope the Senate will support our efforts.
I believe the report from the Committee on Finance was without recommendation, but the senator from Chittenden is recognized. If there's anything you wish to say.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I believe the bill was referred to Finance because it entertains a permit down the road, and permits usually come with fees, although it's very vague and many years off. And so Senate Finance didn't see any fiscal impact and didn't therefore have a basis for recommending or not, and advance the bill before you without recommendation.
The first question is, shall the report of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy be amended as recommended by the Committee on Agriculture? Are you ready for the question? The senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Several weeks ago, when I referred the bill over to the Ag Committee, I noted that we are set up with a single committee jurisdiction Senate, but however, the real world problems cross jurisdictional boundaries all the time, and that's why we referred the bill. And to me, this was a great example of when that's really helpful and appropriate. I want to thank the Ag Committee for taking additional testimony and helping knit together a really workable proposal that preserves the integrity of the bill, as well as better accommodates the needs of the farming community. The Senate Natural Resources and Energy reviewed the amendment and used it favorably and on a 4-0-1 vote. Thank you.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy be amended as recommended by the Committee on Agriculture? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the report as recommended by the Committee on Agriculture. The question is now, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources as amended? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've proposed the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read for the third time? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 466. There has been a request to pass over S 285, which then does complete the orders of the day. And the senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. This time I ask that the rules be suspended and we message our actions to the House on the following bills. H 465, an act relating to boards and commissions. H 489, an act relating to miscellaneous provisions affecting health insurance regulation. H 606, an act relating to community resilience and biodiversity protection. H 727, an act relating to the exploration, formation, and organization of union school districts and unified union school districts.
The senator from Wyndham has moved that the rules be suspended, and H 465, H 489, H 606, and H 727 be messaged to the House. Okay. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've suspended the rules and messaged H 465, H 489, H 606, and H 727 to the House forthwith. The senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I ask that the rules be suspended and we message our actions to the governor on S 287, an act relating to improving student equity, adjusting the school funding formula, and providing education quality and funding oversight.
The senator from Wyndham has moved that the rules be suspended and S 287 be messaged to the governor. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've suspended the rules and messaged S 287 to the governor. The senator from Essex Orleans is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Pending entry on the calendar for notice, I move the rules be suspended on H 626, an act relating to neonic sales, use, and applications of neonicotinoid pesticides be referred to the Committee on Appropriation under Rule 31 with the report of the Ag Committee intact.
Okay, here we go. The senator from Essex Orleans has moved that H 626, an act relating to the sale, use, or application of neonicotinoid pesticides be referred to the Committee on Appropriations under Rule 31 with the report of the Committee on Agriculture intact. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you suspended the rules and moved H 626 to the referred H 626 to the Committee on Agriculture, Committee on Appropriations under Rule 31 with the Committee on Agriculture's report intact. The senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I just request a brief recess so I can confer with the chairs of finance and appropriations.
The Senate will stand in recess until the fall of the gavel. The Senate will please come to order. We're returning from a brief recess, and the senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, pending announcements, I move that the Senate stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. Friday, May 6th.
The senator from Wyndham is moved that, subject to any announcements, the Senate do adjourn until Friday, May 6th at 10 a.m. Are there any announcements? Senator from Orange is recognized.
Madam President, I would like to speak on a point of personal privilege. First of all, I owe my Senate colleagues an apology. When we voted the Clean Heat Bill out of natural resources, one of the first things we did was we started to, we asked the chair how he was going to report the bill. And I asked him a lot of questions. Senator from Rutland would be pleased to know the first question I asked him is there a tax in this bill or isn't there? But Madam Chair, I badgered my chair. I mocked some of his answers. I poked away at his arguments in a disrespectful fashion. And I'm not apologizing to my chair because he knew the bill better than anyone else. But I was being a sparring partner and I was taking my best shots at it. We also reviewed the choices that the Senate had. First, when it dealt with the doubling of fuel prices, we senators could say, it's not our problem, speak to the federal government. Our second choice was to raise money and make that money available to Vermonters who were wrestling with high heat bills and wish to get off of fossil fuels. And the third choice, I said, we can tell poor people, turn down their thermostats and for God's sakes, put on a sweater. And words to that effect. Madam President, someone picked up on the video and guess which one of those was featured, that the senator from Orange thought that people shouldn't worry about high fuel prices and being cold and they should, for God's sakes, put on a sweater. Well, that showed up in an editorial and the person who wrote it, I think, was accurate in his portrayal of those remarks. But I owe the Senate colleagues an apology because anytime a senator like myself gets off the subject of why we are here and allows themselves to be discredited for their remarks, he owes his colleagues an apology. Secondly, I want to apologize to my constituents. I've had constituents give me a call and say, McDonald, you've always represented us, et cetera, and this was embarrassing to read this in the paper. And when you embarrass your constituents, you owe them an apology, Madam President. As the representative from Madison said just a few minutes ago, about an hour ago, if we're different from our neighbors, it's because we have positions of responsibility and should take them seriously. And I apologize to my constituents if it appeared that I didn't take my responsibilities seriously. And thirdly, I have a habit when I drive home. I think there are 3 senators that will remember this from the last time I apologized to my Senate colleagues. I always have a conversation with my late mother, whose death is the reason I'm here, Madam President. And I always ask myself, would she be proud of me today? And having brought discredit to my colleagues through my remarks and disappointed my constituents, she probably would not be proud of me. And she would tell me, for heaven's sakes, I've told you, you got to be more disciplined. So I apologize to my mother. And I thank my colleagues for taking the time to listen. And I promised my mother I'd try and do better. I think there are 2 senators that are here that served with my mother years ago. And thank you.
Are there any other announcements? The senator from Wyndham is recognized, and I'll recognize the senator from Chittenden.
Thank you. Hard to make such a mundane announcement after that. Government operations will meet at 1 o'clock. And I would like to actually remind committee chairs, if you have governor appointees that are in your committee that you have not yet interviewed or talked to and sent back to the Senate, or please do so, because we need to get them confirmed by after the term. Thank you.
The senior senator from Chittenden is recognized.
Senate Health and Welfare will meet at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Bennington is recognized, and then I'll move to the senator from Addison.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Education will meet at 1:30.
Senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Natural Resources and Energy will meet tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Senator from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:30. I know I've got a committee of conference. I hope other committees of conference will meet over the lunch hour because we are booked until at least 6 o'clock this evening.
The senator from Bennington is recognized.
Madam President, Senate Judiciary will meet tomorrow morning at 8:30 instead of 9 due to the number of House bills that we need to look at.
Are there any additional announcements? The senior senator from Caledonia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. The budget conferees are meeting at 1, and I note that the Senate Appropriations Committee has been referred several bills, so I'm hoping that maybe 3 or later in the afternoon we can meet and consider those bills. So please, we'll send out a notice. Thank you.
Are there any additional announcements? The senator from Wyndham has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until Friday, May 6th at 10 a.m. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate stands adjourned until